Hi, this is Scott with Resilient Ecology Systems and Design, and today we're just going to have a short episode talking about maybe a practical application of permaculture principles with blocking wind and using hugel beds to block wind and to create some microclimates. So, there's lots of resources that you can look at for what exactly is a hugel bed, but basically, you bury a bunch of wood that's preferably rotten, large pieces, a variation of large, small pieces, live, dead. You bury it, creating a mound that is shaped somewhat like this, with really steep sides. This will be all wood here on the inside. And then you fill like some dirt, and then more wood, and more dirt, and some more wood. And you stack it up like this. Um, One way that you can use these hugel beds is to block the wind. So as the wind's coming this way, it's going to hit this, and it's going to be a pretty solid barrier, causing deflection, the wind to go up. You're going to have a nice sheltered area right here on the downwind side from it. So one of the cool things about these hugel beds is, they stack several different functions together, and it's a great way for us to harness the natural energy of, the wind that we have right here to shelter from it, and also to harness the energy of the decaying wood that we have in the middle. So what the point of the hugel bed is over time this wood will decompose. It's going to hold on to a lot of nutrients, a lot of water as it decomposes, and we're going to plant the outside of this hugel bed on this very, very steep slope with all sorts of plants and vegetables. And this hugel bed can be up to 8 feet, maybe 10 feet tall. There's really no upper limit, but you want to make them pretty big. Seb Holzer talks about making them so that you can gather from them at a standing height, and it makes it a lot more convenient to make it steep, really tall. It's actually blocking a lot more wind. Some considerations that we're going to have here in northern Arizona that make it really attractive to look at hugel beds is we have huge piles of wood, huge surpluses of a lot of ponderosa pine that the Forest Service cleans up and puts into big brush piles to be burned. So when we have those huge amounts of wood, we really have this untapped resource that right now we're just putting to waste by burning it. And yeah, it might decrease the risk of forest fire, but there's a better way that we could be using it. By burying it here and letting it decompose, we're letting it actually create soils. Over many, many years, this hugel bed will become a little bit shorter, maybe, as all the wood decomposes. But what you're going to be left with is basically a huge pile of great soil. So some strategies that we might want to think about if we're looking at using these hugel beds to block wind, is, a few that we can think of right off the top is we want to plant trees maybe on this really steep side sheltered from the wind. And if we have some trees here, that's really going to do a few things for us. First of all, the trees are going to be able to put down their roots into the wood. They're going to be able to take all of those nutrients from the wood. They're going to be able to tap into all of the excess moisture right there. The roots are also going to stabilize the hugel bed. This is a really steep slope. We're going to need to plant it with a lot of things that have roots that are going to net and just really hold it stable. And also the tree is going to provide an increase in the amount and the ability of the hugel bed to block wind. So a tree, goes up and it's semi-permeable, which means that some of the wind can go through. The problem with the hugel bed, on the other hand, is that it's fully impermeable. So switching a little bit and going to what we're talking about with windbreaks is when you're designing a windbreak out of just trees, you don't want to have a fully impermeable windbreak. So that would be like building a brick wall, because what ends up happening is the wind will go into the impermeable object, it'll get lifted up, and then it'll actually come crashing right back down because you've created this low pressure area that just sucks it back down. And sometimes that violent downward motion of the wind on the other side can be more destructive than it would have been if you had a permeable object. So that's the nice thing about trees is that if you have a stand of trees or a line of trees, it's not going to 100% block the wind. So some of the numbers that I've seen put out by farmer co-ops in the Midwest, where shelter belts, which they call them windbreaks, are a huge thing. Is you ideally want to have 60 to 80% of the wind blocked, and then a 40 to 20% bleed through of the air, and that's really going to prevent you from having that low pressure area, prevent the air from going back down. Back if we integrate the hugel bed with the trees, we can actually get a limited benefit of both by having an impermeable area that's sheltering the trees, and then as those trees grow, you have an impermeable barrier that's letting some of the air go through, hopefully causing it to sink and lessen this low pressure area here on the backside. So that is one way in which in northern Arizona we can make use of an abundant resource in fallen dead wood, maybe scraggly sick trees, and turn them into something that works for us, that provides great soil, provides an opportunity to block the wind, and as another benefit, depending on how you angle this hugel bed, having it go out really really long and narrow. This is going to be a view from above. If the wind was coming down, and then this is lengthwise, the cross section right here, is we can angle this one side or some sides, or have the hugel bed curve around in different angles. It's really going to catch the sun nice in the winter. So what you're going to be creating is a microclimate where you have a nice little warm area, and you're going to have water, and you're going to have decomposing wood, and you're going to have a wind block from just burying a bunch of wood, which we already have, and it's an abundant resource. So there's our short little episode talking about hugel beds, and I hope that you have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.